G'day and welcome back to Reality Check Q&A. I'm your host, Ross Coulthart, and today is the day, of course, this week where you get the chance to ask me the hard questions. We try to answer as many viewer questions as possible. We can't answer all of them because, frankly, there are thousands coming in every week. But here to help me, of course, is my producer and friend colleague, Meagan Ourada. And I should start off the top, Meagan, by noting and recording the fact that Representative Eric Burleson, who sits on the Oversight Transparency Committee in the House, has acknowledged that there will be a UAP hearing, a public hearing, on the 9th of September. And he's gone even further. He's stipulated that there will be at least 3 witnesses. One is a former US Air Force veteran who will speak about 5 UAP incidents. Another is a Navy officer who witnessed UAP events firsthand. Intriguing. And the other is a US Air Force officer who has witnessed firsthand events. I like the sound of that word, firsthand. Obviously, I would like the scientist with the spanner that's fixing the TR-3B, but this all sounds very, very promising. I'm not sure who these people are. I'm aware of first-hand witnesses that I and others have prodded towards the Senate Select Committee for Intelligence, and I know that there's been conversations going on in back rooms discussing the necessary protections and security clearances that need to be gone through to allow people to talk about certain things. So fingers crossed. It's exciting.
Yes, it is very exciting, Russ. We'll take our first viewer question on the hearing. You just touched on this a little bit, but up the vibe on X sent us this. They want to know, are you impressed or discouraged with the quality of whistleblowers in the September 9th hearing? Still seems to me like people who have not interacted with NHI or reverse engineered craft.
I don't know how you could say that when these people, according to Representative Burleson, are first-hand witnesses, first-hand evidence. Let's wait and see. I know because I've been involved in trying to encourage people inside the legacy program to come forward. There is great skepticism from people who are literally, if there was such a thing, using the spanner or the gear stick on the TR-3B. There's huge skepticism about coming forward to a public committee, and even more still coming forward privately. I think Congress needs to go a lot further in providing the necessary protections and assurances to witnesses. I think there's possibly far too much intelligence service input into what people are and aren't allowed to talk about inside a public hearing. And yes, I think to some degree we have to acknowledge that while people like, as I know, Jake Barber, David Grusch, and others that I've referred that way have given very detailed, direct evidence in closed SCIF hearings to the Senate Intelligence, Senate Armed Services, and the equivalent House committees at times. There is a real limit on what can be talked about publicly. And so a lot of Representative Burleson's concerns has been, and indeed David Grusch's concerns, because Dave's been working behind the scenes in Representative Burleson's office trying to help these witnesses over the line, is to make sure that you can get witnesses who can appear in a public setting where it's not compromising national security in a way that the intelligence community or the national security state can step in and shut it down. Because, yeah, there is an input from the IC. If we are developing technology from reverse engineered alien non-human technology or craft, then I can imagine the US would want to keep that secret. I would. And I know that's unpopular with a lot of people out there who think that we should all just do a word vomit and basically reveal everything. But the simple fact is national security does have to be protected. And as much as a lot of us may not like it, if there is technology or systems or weapons systems in particular, or propulsion systems and energy systems that have been developed in the black from non-human technology, I guess it's kind of inevitable that some senators in particular will collude in endeavouring to protect that from public knowledge unless and until probably the President or the National Security Council that really control the narrative on all of this is going to say, you know what, guys, let's be honest with you. That's what's going on here. To some degree, the public hearings are a dog and pony show. You know, we're being shown and told what we're allowed to be told. There's a hell of a lot more that's known about inside the private skiffs, the secure skiffs inside the Congress where briefings have been given. Congressmen and senators, congressional representatives and senators know a hell of a lot more privately than they do or can talk about publicly. And this is one of the dilemmas right now. And I sense a growing impatience from UAP social media that it's just not fair. And it's not fair. Absolutely, it's not fair. But the simple fact is, if the US does have classified, waived, unacknowledged special access programs operating under compartmentalized security clearances, and if these are in some way authorized by some kind of presidential executive order or presidential executive action directive or emergency action directive, a so-called PED, I guess there might be some perceived legal legitimacy for why this is all being kept secret. And I think we're just going to have to muddle on, and I don't think you're ever going to see the kind of disclosure that people are hoping for in the Congress. It's going to have to come from President Trump or whoever it is in the White House when the decision is made to be more candid with the public.
All right, Ross, piggybacking off that a little bit, Daniel on X. Hi, Ross. Are you aware of the current status of Grusch's ICIG investigation? Burleson recently commented that he was under the impression it was still ongoing, but others have said it's been closed.
Look, obviously, I've had conversations with Dave about the ICIG investigation. Suffice to say, I think it's still ongoing, but I think it's also been, how does one say this politely, shelved. Has there been political interference to stop the ICIG from continuing the investigation? It should be noted that the ICIG, who made the finding that David Grusch's allegations were credible and urgent and in need of investigation by the Congress, he's moved on. Thomas Monheim has moved on. It's not clear what the current position is of the current ICIG. Maybe they feel that they've served their task by referring the matter on to Congress for investigation. I don't think that's enough. I don't think any of us think that's enough. Frankly, I think the oversight and accountability bodies inside the US government are about as strong and effective as a piece of limp lettuce leaf. But that's the situation. We have a situation where the Congress is, frankly, allowing itself to be treated like a supine puppy. Roll over, tickle my tummy. And, the oversight and accountability bodies like the Intelligence Community Inspector General, they're just not doing their job. They're not showing the mettle that they should be showing. And who can blame them? They're bureaucrats like everyone else. They're there at the sufferance of the president, and the leadership has to come from the executive authority of the president. The only leadership, guys, I guess I'm going to be a scratchy record today, the only leadership is going to have to come from the president. And look, there are, I note with some interest, some fruitful signs. You've got Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, talking to my friend and colleague Miranda Devine, an Aussie who works with the New York Post. And I've forgotten the name of Miranda's podcast, but I do commend it. She did an interview with Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, and Tulsi actually admitted that she does think that there are aliens, and she indicated very strongly that there are things that she has to be very careful talking about as Director of National Intelligence. So there's her. We know that Kash Patel, the head of the FBI, has in the past indicated a strong willingness to get to the truth of the UAP mystery. We know that John Ratcliffe, the head of the CIA, the director of the CIA, has been pushing very, very hard to get to the truth of the JFK case, the RFK case, and the MLK mystery and the Epstein story. The next one on his plate, of course, is UAPs. It'll be interesting to see what John Ratcliffe does about that and what the CIA knows about UFOs, UAPs. But really, again, I'm probably going to sound like a scratchy record. It all comes back to the president. And I think that he would feel probably at the moment that there's a hell of a lot on his plate. He's dealing with Ukraine, he's dealing with the economy, he's dealing with all manner of things. And maybe the simple fact is that at the moment for President Trump, the issue of UAPs is not the highest priority of all. Well, maybe it should be. I think a lot of us feel that way. But just right now, yeah, I mean, I think we're just going to have to wait and see.
And Ross, just to help you out a little bit, Miranda Devine's podcast is Podcast One.
Podcast One. Thanks very much. It's a play, I presume, on Air Force One, is it?
Yes, very cheeky. We love it. Jay on X. This is our most popular question that we did receive today. James Fowler is moving on from Skywatcher. What do you think this means, and how does it affect their mission?
James is a really good guy. He's the guy who provided a lot of the how does one say, the sensor technology, the radar systems, the camera systems, the technology that essentially allowed the Skywatcher team to detect objects as they were being allegedly summoned by either the psionics or the dog whistle. I made a note of what James has said about his departure from Skywatcher. He said that from August 24 to July 25, he had the opportunity to serve as a founder and consultant at Skywatcher, where he led field operations supporting the mission of exploring UAPs and advancing air domain awareness. He's announced, I am stepping away from active involvement with Skywatcher, with my contributions now limited to my foundational work. I'm excited to focus on a new venture in aerial intelligence dedicated to building innovative technology to address complex challenges in this field. I remain proud of my foundational contributions at Skywatcher and wish the team continued success in their future endeavours. Now look, if there is any bad blood between Skywatcher and James, which I know a lot of people are speculating about online, James is certainly not entertaining it. Basically, he's very quickly rebuffed people who've speculated on Twitter that there is any issue between him and Skywatcher. I wasn't aware, frankly, that he was going to be leaving so soon. It came as a surprise to me, and I get the impression from Skywatcher, they've put out a statement today, as of this past July, our team completed its initial round of field operations, during which data was captured for 7 to 10 days each month, beginning in January. We now hold more than 10 terabytes of data and have assembled an external team of analysts who've begun their work. We are working with world-class independent scientists, physicists and radar specialists to evaluate the data in accordance with our discovery framework. In short, we have now entered our analysis phase. We're pursuing this work scientifically and rigorously, and we will share our findings as soon as they are available. The entire team is moving as quickly as possible. We'll have more updates to share soon. And as usual, there's some sour old bastard from the debunker community going, you are also full of shit and have brought zero credible data to the table. What a miserable bastard. I actually think Skywatcher's done very well. They're an organisation that have pushed the needle on UAP disclosure. They've obtained data, which is, I think, really exciting. Yes, of course, we would have loved something more than the quality of footage that they've obtained to date. But remember, we haven't seen all of Skywatcher's footage. I'm told there's much more there that hasn't been publicly released. I can't blame Alex Clokas and his equity backers from holding back on exactly what they've obtained. Alex is the private equity Wall Street financier who's funded a lot of the Skywatcher project in collaboration with a group of high net worth individuals, and good on them for putting their cash where their ideas are. It's a fantastic initiative. I had heard a rumour that Skywatcher was looking at psionics, and I think there might have even been a statement from somebody in Skywatcher that their next phase was to look at psionics. So it did come as a surprise to me and other people that they were stopping their field operations. So frankly, if there is any bad blood between James Fowler and the rest of the Skywatcher team, I know he and Jake Barber are still very good mates, very good friends, so I know there's no issue there. If there is any issue, he's certainly not letting on about it. And I think all of us would wish James the very best, and many thanks for the great work that he's done. There are some miserable sods out there who complain about the quality of the videos and complain about Skywatcher's level of transparency. Well, look, frankly, you're just going to have to get over it. They're a private organisation. They can do whatever the hell they like. Anyone who's doing any kind of private research isn't under any obligation to tell you anything. I think if you were more polite outside there in UAP social media and more respectful of the fact that people are putting their own money up to do their own research and stopped your whinging, then maybe you might actually get more information. There's a really nasty troll backlash right now, a lot of which I suspect is being driven by a particular disinformation unit in South Carolina run by the US intelligence community. And they are so consistently using, hilariously, Twitter accounts that all started in October or November of 2024. They're running these regular whinging campaigns, trying to undermine the credibility of organisations like Skywatcher. And frankly, it's not working, guys. The public isn't buying it. Everybody's very, very excited by what Skywatcher has achieved. We wish James Fowler the best. I know Jake and Alex are continuing with some more interesting research, and I hope and pray that at some stage Alex might see his way to coming on the show here and talking to us in great detail about what Skywatcher has achieved and what it hopes to achieve in the future. Open invitation there, Alex. It would be lovely to have you on board. I'm actually not privy. I've been hoping that at some stage a media organisation like myself might be invited to come out in the field with the Skywatcher team while they were doing their observations and particularly their psionic summonings. That's not happened, and it looks like, from what the announcement today is indicating, it looks like they're discontinuing any more field operations now that James is withdrawing his equipment from the field, which is a great pity. I would have loved to have seen much more technology being used. For example, at one stage, I know there was talk of a NASA collaboration where NASA was going to bring a very high quality camera in to allow much more high resolution observation of objects. So I think, to be realistic, this has happened as something of a surprise to a lot of people, myself included. I wasn't aware until very recently that James was departing Skywatcher, and I think we all wish him the very, very best and hope he gets some lucrative contracts from the Defence Department. Hopefully he's finding lots and lots of UAPs.
Great, Russ. Pathfinder on X, Representative Anna Paulina Luna talked about interdimensional beings on the Joe Rogan show. Has Ross heard anything about interdimensional beings from his sources?
Look, I don't know what Representative Anna Paulina Luna was referring to when she made that statement to Joe Rogan. I know that Eric Davis, the renowned astrophysicist and physicist, has spoken publicly and briefed certain representatives. I think it might have been Luna as well, but I think he certainly spoke to Burleson about alien species. So yeah, I mean, there has been talk about if there are NHI, what species are there, and the interdimensionals did come up. I know David Grusch, in his interview with me in 2023, he talked openly about interdimensionals and speculated that what we're talking about here might not be extraterrestrial, i.e. from this solar system, galaxy, or indeed universe, but perhaps it's some kind of intelligence that's transitioning from another dimension, which is mind-blowing if true. I really don't have any inside information. The people who know, of course, are the people in the National Security Council who are responsible for suppressing this continued secret and probably keeping it secret from a succession of presidents. Yeah, it'd be really nice if they were more forthcoming. I can only speculate about what it is that the intelligence community tells incoming National Security Council advisors for each president as they come in and presumably are briefed on the UAP secret, the secret of the legacy retrieval and reverse engineering program. How the hell do they provide any excuse or reason to presidents to allow this to continue to be kept secret? What is it that they've told the presidents over the years to encourage them to stop revealing this to the public? There must be something. I certainly can't think of it. Nobody that I've spoken to can give me any credible reason for why it should continue to be suppressed. I suspect that for a lot of people in the intelligence community, it's just all too difficult, and it's easier to continue lying and deceiving the public and using your stooges on social media to try to undermine the credibility of anyone who makes claims that this is a real program. Those days are over. There's continuing indications now from people like the Director of National Intelligence, the head of the FBI, the head of the CIA, Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. There are multiple people in Cabinet now who are aware of the UAP issue, and the only way we're ever going to get answers is by quietly and gently impressing upon the President, President Donald Trump, that we need public disclosure, and only he can loosen the strings on what is known.
All right, let's go to an email from Jonathan. Dear Ross, recently you've said that you believe the UAP reverse engineering efforts of Lockheed Martin are lagging behind the efforts of the Chinese government. Do you also have any sources which let you make any reasonable guesses or estimates of the progress in this area from the Russians or North Koreans or other entities like the EU?
That's a really good question. I'm surprised I haven't been asked it before. Okay, what do I know? I don't know a lot about China, but I do know that the Chinese are by far the most aggressive deployers of espionage, on the ground spying in the United States, trying to find out what the US legacy reverse engineering program is up to. There is genuine concern from multiple sources that I've spoken to that the Chinese have stolen the leap on us with non-human reverse engineered technology, that they've recovered craft of their own, and that they have made advances far and beyond what the US has achieved. The concern among my sources is that there has been a complacence at the highest levels of national security in the United States, and that what we have is a looming 9/11 style situation where arrogant, hubristic men who love secrets have used secrets to conceal their incompetence. That's the concern at the heart of the legacy program, that essentially there is technology that has been recovered, but that a large part of the efforts to retrieve and reverse engineer that technology have been frustrated by the excessive compartmentalization, the excessive secrecy applied to those programs. Meanwhile, let's go to Russia for a moment. I know for a fact that certain scientists at a Naval Surface Warfare Center, an NSWC, were briefed in 2024 about Russia, about a place called Mount Yamantau. Now, I think a lot of you need to think about things that Donald Trump himself has acknowledged. A couple of times in the last few years, Donald Trump, President Trump, has suggested that there might be some kind of technology, some kind of super weapon that the United States has, and that our potential adversaries ought to be very wary of the United States because of that. He's never elaborated, and the supine lickspittles in the White House press room have always failed to ask any follow-up questions because they don't know how. But what I can tell you is that President Putin has said the same. Multiple times, President Putin has hinted himself that the Russians have some kind of super weapon. And I note that in the briefing at a certain Naval Surface Warfare Center, a chap called Vasily Buranok was cited. He's the former head of the Ministry of Defense in Russia 46th Research Institute and the president of an organization called RARAN, R-A-R-A-N. And in May of 2014, he said, quote, "On top of the list of high-tech weapons of the next generation and weapons based on new physical principles are weapons systems for energetic information impact in all media, space, air, ground, sea, underwater and underground, and at any range." Those are incredible statements. That was 11 years ago in 2014. He was followed, he was preceded by, in August 2011, Major General Vorobyov and Colonel V. Kiselev. They talked about achieving energetic surprise by mass employment of new types of weapons previously unknown to the enemy, and creating zones of energetic damage in vulnerable locations of the enemy that are unexpected by him. What are the Russians talking about? What were they talking about? I'm told they're talking about, among other things, what are called scalar weapons. They're indicating very, very strongly that a lot of the research being done at a place called the Yamantau Mountain Facility, Yamantau. Look it up, guys. Google it. You're going to be hearing a lot about it. The Yamantau Mountain Facility is Russia's Area 51. It's where a lot of the research is ongoing into, among other things, the Soviet Strategic Defense Initiative, a mountaintop free electron laser, underground X-ray and gamma-ray laser R&D facilities. And also in this same facility, neutrino beams for submarine communications, relativistic electron beams, ionospheric weapons, supercompression of powerful ion beams by strong magnetic fields, magnetic monopole micro black hole factory, weapons based on induced proton decay, micro-nuke gravitational wave detectors. This is where the Russians are doing their UAP research. A mountaintop called Yamantau. Now, interestingly enough, there's not a clear indication yet from the Russians as to whether or not they've had the breakthroughs that I suspect China has had. As I've said before, I do think that China is deploying drones over the continental United States, and that's one of the secrets that the government of the United States doesn't want to have to admit to the public, that they are now grievously concerned that some of the technology being seen, particularly prominently in places like upstate New Jersey, right across, though, the whole continent of the United States, that some of this technology is foreign adversary technology, probably Chinese. I defy the White House to maintain its BS line that these are FAA, Federal Aviation Administration authorized research drones. That was a lame line put out by the White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt back in January, when the president was forced to honor a promise he'd rashly made to the media before he'd had his briefing, where he basically wanted the White House Chief of Staff to find a quick explanation for what these drones were. And so we've been given a whole series of contradictory explanations now. We've had two generals go on US 60 Minutes, CBS 60 Minutes, and admit that they've got no blooming idea what these drones are, but they're a concern because they're obviously operating with impunity over the continental United States. Either way, however you see this, this is a national security and flight safety risk, a huge national security concern. Yes, the Russians and the Chinese are stealing the march on the US because a bunch of A-type generals and people in the CIA decided to keep it all secret. That's my view.
All right, Ross, we are out of time, but I want to sneak one more quick one in with you. On X, Gambit Peggy, has Ross seen the movie Men in Black? And if so, does he like it?
I love the movie Men in Black, and I am amazed how many people I've spoken to have told me that at times when they've raised publicly things that the government doesn't want released, they have been visited by strange people wearing black suits in very old-fashioned clothing. And look, it's one of those apocryphal mythical stories that runs through ufology. And you can't dismiss it. Like everyone else, I'm fascinated with the story. I do think there's a control group. I don't think they go around wearing black suits and black trilby hats anymore, but there certainly is a control group. There is a control group of people who do. I'm told very reliably that there is a group that essentially travels the world monitoring for retrievals of craft, technology, people who are making scientific breakthroughs that are inconvenient, that need to be quietly suppressed. Yes, there is a control group. I don't think they're wearing black.
Well, let's hope they have a pug.
I love the little pug.
So
Thanks
do I.
very much, Meagan, and thank you to our audience for sitting through all of this. I hope you found it interesting. See you soon. And if you do want to send us a question, you can send questions to realitycheck@newsnationnow.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.